Hello!
Hi!
Welcome to Bookmarked Chapter 4. Today we are going to be discussing real readers. I am Hailey. My channel is Hailey on Bookland. You are on it. Hello, welcome. And here are my co-hosts.
I'm Hannah. My channel is A Clockwork Reader.
And I am Zoe. I am from the channel ReadbyZoe.
So today's discussion is going to be basically about the misconception that there is such a thing as real readers. I think this is something that comes up. Oh my God, there's an ad playing on my phone. That's very loud.
Oh my gosh, we're sponsored today.
And they don't even exactly know how our last video started with my phone.
Hilarious. But yeah, so we are going to be talking about the fact that people think that there's such a thing as real readers, and people think that certain things don't count as real reading, such as YA, such as audiobooks, such as
many
lots
other
of
things.
Yeah. So I think one of the hills that I will die on is that audiobooks are real reading. It is such like an ableist thing to say that they don't count as reading, and I know that that's something that has come up recently, but like especially recently for me, audiobooks have been my entire life. That has been all that I've been reading, and it has been so helpful. So I know that you guys listen to audiobooks as well.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Hannah, you want to go first?
I would also die on the same hill. Like anytime someone tells me like, no, reading an audiobook is like listening to it. It doesn't count. I honestly just like instantly delete that comment or just like wipe it from my mind. Cause like, it's so wrong. Yeah. It's just so flat out wrong. Audiobooks are reading. If you think that like storytelling didn't start out through like oration, like through oral storytelling, and you think like writing started out first, you are also incorrect. So I don't understand why this is so controversial to people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love them. I love listening to them. As someone who like, especially lately, hasn't felt as motivated to read, audiobooks are just really, really nice for me, and they're really relaxing. They help me with my anxiety. Like, I just think they're wonderful things. So
yeah, I tend to listen to an audiobook while I'm reading, because being fully immersed in a story really helps with my anxiety as well. Just being in one world that's not my own, totally like all of my senses, basically, it helps so much. And I think as long as you're paying attention to the story, as long as it's not just background noise, you're consuming a story. Does it really matter which way you're consuming it? Like, would you tell someone who is blind and is reading Braille because it's not with their eyes? Like, I feel, again, it's very ableist, and you're consuming words. As long as you're paying attention, you understand what's happening, I think it counts.
Someone was also saying, and Jesse mentioned it as well, the fact that people will say that like manga, I never know how to say it, I'm really sorry. Yeah. Manga, graphic novels and comics are not considered reading as well by a lot of people, which I personally don't like them, but they're absolutely reading. If you are reading a word, guess what? You're reading. Like, at that note, then newspapers, you're not reading a newspaper. Like, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me either. I don't know why there's this idea where you have to put a label on what reading is. There has to be like a certain thing that you're reading, a certain number of words that you're consuming in order to be considered a real reader. There has to be like literature. You have to be consuming something that is going to better you. Like, why can't I just read for fun? What a concept. I don't know why that's something that people struggle to understand. It makes no sense to me.
We forgot to say what we're currently reading.
Oh, we did. I'm sorry.
And we just went straight into our rant.
I got really caught up in
we probably should back up a little bit.
We'll let you guys put in questions and tell you what we're reading.
This is a very one-sided argument. We're all on the same side. Yeah. So if you have any differing opinions, let us know. I would love to understand where other people are coming from, because I'm very much everything counts. Ha ha ha. Make it all inclusive. But if you have a different opinion, that'd be very interesting.
So I'll go first with what I'm reading. So I'm currently reading Spellbook of the Lost and Found by Moira Fowley Doyle, which I believe I was reading last week as well. Spookathon didn't go well. And Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessel I'm listening to because, interestingly, I finished listening to this and then I realized that it was only background noise and I had no clue what happened. So now I'm starting it again.
See,
which happens.
You're going back and you're actually reading.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that happens. And I don't think there's any shame in like re-listening to it.
Well, I do that sometimes too. I just have like an audiobook, like the Pride and Prejudice audiobook narrated by Rosamund Pike. The best audiobook in the entire history of audiobooks. It's so soothing, but I put it on when I'm falling asleep. And so I don't count that as like reading Pride and Prejudice like 1,005 times. I'm just like, oh, that's how I fall asleep. So yeah. Anyway, Hannah, what are you reading?
Because I'm the greatest booktuber ever, I'm not reading anything.
An icon.
I just haven't felt like reading. I don't feel like listening to an audiobook. I don't feel like reading a graphic novel. I don't feel like reading poetry, reading a novel. Like, I just don't feel like reading. So I'm not reading. I've been rewatching the Harry Potter movies though. So.
Ooh. But you still count as a reader, even though you're not currently reading.
True. I haven't read a book
together.
I know I've read like maybe one book this whole month. So
you read fan fiction.
That's true. I did read I read like 240K word fan fiction. So it was long.
Was it all Harry Potter?
Yes.
Oh, have you read? Apparently there's one that my entire family except me has read, and it's Deathly Hallows, I think, from Neville's perspective or something, or like
amazing
if he was the chosen one or something like that. I'll find it. I'll let you know.
Send it
but
to me.
Apparently it's like better, according to my mother and my father, it's better than the actual Deathly Hallows.
Oh.
But they also
I need that.
Deathly Hallows. So
anyway, send me that link.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely ask Renee. I'm reading 4 books. 2 are the same books that I have been reading for the past 2 weeks because I've been having a lot of trouble getting through books. But I'm slowly getting out of this reading slump, and that's why I'm reading 2 more books. The first one is Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Still reading this. It's a comic/graphic novel, and I don't really like the art style, but it's creepy, so it adds to the atmosphere. It's a little bit too creepy for my tastes. I like spooky, not creepy. And I'm reading Coraline by Neil Gaiman, which is a children's book, and it's taken me a month to read. And I'm rereading Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen for the 1,005th time, but I'm actually physically reading it while I'm listening to the Rosamund Pike audiobook because a legend. And I'm annotating this copy. And I'm reading After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She also wrote 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I read this summer. So good.
Love that book.
I'm really like,
so good.
This is helping me out of my reading slump.
Yep.
It's helping me out of it. It's like
I've read all of her books now. 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is the best. That's my second favorite.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I just purchased Maybe in Another Life or something like that because I'm on such a kick with her. It's so easy to read. It's really good for reading slumps. Recommend.
You should also read One True Love. This one's also really good.
I'm going to read all of them.
Do it.
I'm so excited. Okay.
If you guys had any questions, we forgot to mention to tweet them with the hashtag bookmarked to at Bookmarked Club on Twitter. We already had some questions. We usually tweet out a little bit early just in case anyone's not able to watch live. We also tweet that out early. If you have any, you can put them in the chat as well. But I think we should talk a bit about YA and how I know myself as a reader, and especially with being an English major, the second that I say I'm a big reader and actually as a writer too, the second that I say YA, young adult novels, are what I'm interested in, I'm dismissed. It's like you are pushed aside. Oh, like that's not literature. It's not lofty, blah, blah, blah. And I find that's where a lot of people will complain about BookTube and the fact that quite a few people on BookTube are talking about young adult novels. So people don't think that people are talking about anything of consequence, which is obviously very false. You have amazing books in the YA genre, and well, if you consider YA genre, but like
the
anything
category,
else,
category, not the genre category.
In like any other category, there are good books, there are bad books. It's the same with fiction, it's the same with literature. There's just so many people that are quick to dismiss YA. I don't know if you guys have had that as well, but that's definitely something I've struggled with.
I think all of us have. I think no matter what you read, there will be people who say that it doesn't count or that you're either like pretentious because you read classics or whatever, or you're too juvenile because you're reading children's books or something like that. And I think as long as you're trying to read widely, as long as you're like trying to, I mean, you don't have to, but personally, I love not just sticking to one category. If there's something that interests me, read it. So I know like my dad has read all of the Percy Jackson books, like all of Rick Riordan's books he's read. He's like a 50-something-year-old man, and he still reads a middle grade. So I think it still counts. Just try to delve into other genres, I'd say. But I think definitely there are elitists or judgmental people in every place.
There's actually someone on Twitter as well who mentioned, was talking about the fact that people think that when you're older and you read YA, which I think all of us would be considered too old to read YA, especially because in stores it's called teen. I don't know if in the States it's called teen. Is it? At Barnes & Noble?
Barnes & Noble, sometimes it's like teen, like
sometimes it's
fantasy or something. Yeah.
Okay. Because at my store, it's straight up teen.
I think at Books A Million, it's young adult now.
Okay. Well,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that just filled that in my own head.
No. I think that the fact that you can age out of a category, like, sure, you could be reading something that's older, but I think as long as you're reading what you enjoy, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll never understand why people care so much about what you do with your life and what you do for enjoyment when it doesn't affect them at all. Like, you need to get a hobby.
We do this for entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with YA specifically, I think a lot of people just in any other scenario as well, people like to hate on things that are marketed towards teen girls. Mm-hmm. And I don't really understand like why that is such a big problem. But yeah, again, like I think people just like have this perception of reading, and reading is supposed to be this like intellectual thing that only intellectual people can do, and you have to like do it in a specific way. And if you're not conforming to that way of traditionally like doing like performing reading, then you're not like considered a real reader in those people's eyes. And I just think that that's like completely wrong and a serious problem, because reading is a hobby, and it should be a hobby that's accessible to everybody and something that everyone can enjoy. And yeah, I don't understand why it's like a serious issue to some people.
I think, because reading used to be such only privileged people really got to read books. I think like old white men still kind of think that they dictate what we read or what is like acceptable, like romance. People still look down on that, and like children's books, like things like that. So, and there's still such an idea of who is a reader. Like really, like people won't, I don't know. I feel
well, there's an argument where like I have my books rainbow like color coordinated, and people will say I'm not a real reader because I do that. Like, just because I'm a visual person and I want my bookshelves to look aesthetically appealing, I am automatically just a book collector. Which why, like, I don't get why it matters so much.
But then there's people who they'll get their books from the library, and then people will say that they aren't a real reader because they don't have bookshelves in their room. So both sides, you cannot win. And
no, you really can't.
What is a perfect reader? Like, let's lay this out. How many books do they have? I have no idea. Do they have like a lot of books? No, they're just collecting. Do they have like a small collection? No, they don't care enough. Do they read like just classics? No. Like they also read fantasy and stuff like that. So like, come on, people.
It's such a frustrating argument, especially like I love classics. I really do. But there's also some that I really haven't enjoyed. And I think there's something where people will be like, oh, you didn't like that classic? Bye. Like, you don't matter anymore. So I get that a lot. Like, I haven't read Lord of the Rings, and I don't really have that much of an interest in Lord of the Rings. I'm kind of torn. I don't know. I either really want to read it or I don't want to read it at all.
Don't read it.
I don't think I'm going to, because I read The Hobbit and I didn't like it. But
that's how I felt, yeah.
Yeah. So I just...
You read that for my book club Hannah.
I did, but I didn't.
So rude. You're not a real reader. No,
a lot of people, especially as a writer, will be like, how can you be writing in fantasy when you haven't read like Lord of the Rings? And I'm like, well, I'm doing it. I'm writing fantasy and I haven't read it. So that's how. It's such a losing battle, like you said, Zoe, because either way you can't win. But I totally disagree with the idea that there's like this set list of classics that you have to have read in order to consider yourself a reader. I would really like to read the classics because I think that they're interesting. It's interesting to see where literature started, like how it has progressed. And that's just me being an English major nerd. But I also don't think that you have to. If you don't enjoy classics and you like reading smut, whatever, that's you. Like, you do you. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you enjoy, as long as there's a book in your hands, I don't care. That's all.
I think people
or a book in your ears.
Yes. As long as you are consuming words. It does sound wrong. It's fine.
People make it seem like they're like prerequisites, like it's a course or something, and you have to have read these books before you're allowed like into this like elite club of readers or whatever. And like that's just not what it's like. Like I remember, because like I don't really like Charles Dickens because I read Great Expectations and I hated it in high school. And I remember someone commented on one of my videos. This was in my reading hate comments video. It's one of the ones I read, but someone said like all the books she reads are YA crap and she wants to give Dickens another try. Like, holy hell, he'd be honored or something. And I was like, he should be honored if I wanted to read another one of his books, honestly. Like, yeah, so I don't understand that. Like, I love a lot of classics, but there are going to be a lot of classics that I don't like because they're just not good. Like, you don't have to like them all. And you don't have to read them in order to be a reader. So, yeah.
Have you read A Tale of Two Cities?
I haven't. I do want to read that
That's
one.
my fave. That's the only one I've read by him. So I'm like,
I
read The Christmas Carol too.
Yeah, Christmas Carol's good. I had to read Oliver Twist twice, and I enjoyed it.
Twice?
I had it in two classes.
Alice in Wonderland like 50
Yes, that's the thing. Literally, my university, it's all old dead white men. That's all that we would have to read. So I constantly had the same texts over and over again. William Blake, Alice in Wonderland, obviously wasn't mad about that one. But Oliver Twist, like Shakespeare, all those things I had all the time because there's like this precedent set on like old white dead men literature is like, that's great. Everything else, no. Like my creative writing teacher in university, when I started writing YA stuff for his course, he was like, no, it's not poetry. I don't want it. And I did terribly in that course because of that. It was awful. I hate him a lot. He also told me I could never write a book. So.
Well, you're going to get published and prove him wrong. So
exactly. I want a signed copy. And I'm like, no.
Should we move on to questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, people are trying. So my vlog.
So let's go.
People keep on asking about my vlog, so I just wanted to say really quickly, there was an edit that I forgot to take out, so I had to.
I saw it. It's a very interesting thing she left in.
I'm processing the edit right now. It'll probably be back up tomorrow. I just had to put it on private while that was happening.
Oh, I feel like a lot of this is people are so excited to talk about other people, about their favorite books. And if people have not read those books, it turns into you haven't read it. Like that, I feel like maybe it's excitement that has turned into judgment. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping for.
I can see that because, I mean, the second that someone says that they don't like your favorite book, you're kind of like, oh. Like, people constantly tell me that they hate The Book Thief, which I totally get. Like, my two favorite books are ones that are generally not liked by quite a few people. They also have, like
The Book Thief.
A lot of people don't because they don't understand the perspective that it's told from. And he has a really interesting writing style, which I don't think meshes with everyone. And I totally think that's fine. But there are some people that, you know, I feel like, yeah, it could be excitement that's kind of turning into a bit of hatred and a bit of judgment, which is just not right. Do not like.
Also, I feel like school, it really kind of makes you look at books in not a great way, especially the classics.
Yeah.
So I feel like either people have a great teacher, like that's part of why I love Pride and Prejudice and like A Tale of Two Cities, because for those years I had a really good teacher, and so it made me think of them much more positively. And so I really like them. But I feel like if you have, or maybe you just don't like them, everyone comes to books in a different way. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Listen to the Pumpkin Queen.
I forgot, I still had it out of my head, but we're going with it.
So did I until I listened. I was like, oh, it's happening. Jack-o'-lanterns everywhere.
I just lost it. Where did it go? So there's a question in the chat. Lost Girl of Neverland asked, do you feel certain pressure to read new releases? So I was thinking we could like answer that and also talk about like the stigma of like reading new releases versus reading like backlisted books. Yeah.
I definitely feel pressure to keep up with new releases, and that's something I've been struggling with, especially recently. In 2018, I've been horrible about it because I've been writing so much. So I haven't really been able to keep up with stuff, especially because September, October, all the publishers are trying to get out all of the books before Christmas. So recently there have been like 20 or so books that have come out. That might be dramatic. I don't really know. There's been a lot of books that have come out that I really want to read, and I just haven't gotten the chance to. So I think there's definitely pressure to keep up with new releases. However, I'm not too bad about it. I kind of just read whatever I'm interested in. I've never really felt like I should be picking a new release or an arc over something that I've had for a while or something that has been out for a while. I kind of just do my thing and don't really care. But
I'm the same. I am such a mood reader that like,
yes,
it doesn't matter. Like, do I feel like reading a book that is like 100 years old right now? Do I feel like reading a book that came out yesterday? Don't know. Ask me like in that moment and I'll tell you like what I feel like reading. But yeah, I don't really feel pressured to read new releases over other books. But there is with like BookTube, at least, I think some general like pressure to be interested in more new releases than I would normally be interested in, if that makes sense. I think it's just because I'm exposed to more books and like I just find out about more books. So then I'm like, oh wait, I want to like read these. Not that like people are like
you want to keep up with the trends.
Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily. It's just like I'm exposed to so many more new books that like I want to like read all of those, but like I get like distracted by other things. So then like sometimes I'm like, oh, like I wanted to read all these books and now I'm not reading them. And then I like feel that pressure to read them. But for me, it's not really like a keeping up with like the trends thing. Unless it's like a series and everyone's talking about it in that moment. I'm like, okay, I have to read it now.
That's the only time, I think.
Yeah.
I usually buy a bunch of new releases because everyone's talking about it. I'm like, oh, I'm so hyped. But then I'm such a mood reader. So like all these 4 books, none of them came out in 2018. When was the last time I read a new release? I don't even know, but I know I've purchased quite a few of them, and they stay on my shelf until I get around to that mood. But yeah, it doesn't really faze me too much. It doesn't really dictate what I read. It dictates more what I buy. I think that's it. And also, I went back and I looked at my most anticipated books of 2018 video. I think I've read about like a quarter of those.
That's always me. Oh my gosh.
I haven't looked at it.
Like, why did I make that video? I know I'm probably gonna do it for 2019 too.
Yeah, it's just it's a fun video to do.
I like looking forward to things.
Yeah.
But then the hype dies before it comes.
Actually, this year, I think I've been pretty good with my new releases. I have to go back and watch it, but I think I've read a decent number of them. More so than usual.
There's a really good question here on Twitter that I liked a lot. So they don't have a name on Twitter. Drew Sazam. And they said, I'm currently in an English class that is all about YA for teachers. If you were a teacher, what book would you teach to high school students?
Ooh.
I thought that was a good question. I'm going to say a couple. So The Hate You Give, because I think that's a very, very important read, especially because it's very apropos for the time period. But also, I think The Book Thief is a book that you can learn a lot from. You can learn a lot from the language, and it's just an all-around beautiful story. So those would be my 2.
Going on Goodreads.
I know. I can never think of any. I'll give you
the first thing that's coming to my mind right now is The Astonishing Color of After.
Ah, yes.
Because I love that book. And I think that book should be taught in schools because it's just so good.
Especially with mental health being such a big problem right now. I think that really teaches you a lot, because I feel like, especially in high school, and I mean, even outside of high school, everyone has been touched by suicide in some way. And that's really a book that teaches you a lot about it. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, representation of mental illness. Sorry, I just wanted to add that.
No, it's okay. I agree with all of those. I adore that book, and I think it has so many important messages in regard to so many different things too, like obviously mental health and suicide, but the way that it talks about family, the way it talks about identity, I just think it's a fabulous book. My lights just flickered. There's a demon in here.
Oh, the pumpkin queen coming for you.
Bye.
But yeah, that's the one that's coming to my head right now.
I was actually last year, I was in a YA class at university, one of the only English classes that I've actually liked at university. And the only one that stuck with me is American Born Chinese by Jean Luan Yang. It's a graphic novel, and it's all about identity and like getting in touch with your culture. And I really enjoyed that. And it stuck with me for a while. And the only one that I can think of that I've read recently, I think, would be Sadie by Courtney Summers. Mostly just seeing how different forms of storytelling can come together. But yeah, I just go for YA. I'm proud of these teachers who are going out of the old white men category.
My old high school teacher.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Someone go.
Oh my god. My old high school teacher is currently teaching The Hate You Give to her students, so that makes me happy. Yeah.
I know quite a few are, so I think
it's become like a thing.
Yeah.
I think there was a free teaching pack that came out on Twitter, so I think that's why a lot of them are. But I think it's good.
That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's almost 7:30, so we should take just like a couple more questions.
Why do we talk so much?
And now the time flies. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, okay. This is an interesting question on Twitter. So Pineapple Girl 123 said she didn't start avidly reading until this year and sometimes feels that she's not a true reader because she missed on so many books and feels like she has to catch up on all of them. And I can definitely relate to that because I wasn't a reader as a kid. So there's a lot of books that I know you two grew up with and like a lot of people just in readers in general grew up with that I've never read. Like I've never read the series of Unfortunate Events. And there are a lot of like even Percy Jackson. I enjoyed Percy Jackson, but I don't think I read it when I was at a time in my life to read it. Like I thought it was good, but I didn't get all the love surrounding it. So I definitely think that's something relatable, but I don't think that doesn't make you a true reader. Like, I guess what we're trying to say in this conversation is that there's no such thing as a real reader. There's no one framework for a reader. You can read whatever you want. Once again, whatever you're consuming words, then you're a reader. Congratulations.
If you enjoy it. If you enjoy it.
Exactly.
It doesn't even have to be frequently. Like you can read one book a month, one book a year. But if you loved that experience and you want to do it again, I would call you a reader if you want to be called a reader. You can call yourself whatever you want to be called.
No, absolutely. Like I also completely relate to that because like I spent a good majority of my high school years not reading anything. Like I read maybe 1 or 2 books a year. Usually those books were just like school books too. And I didn't read. And it was very weird because I was a really, really avid reader when I was younger. So there was like this period of my life where I was reading almost nothing. And then when I found Booktube, I felt like I was so behind everybody else because like I hadn't read like all these series that everybody else were reading. I hadn't read all these popular books and like all of these things. And I was like, oh, I have to catch up. Like I have to read all of them. Like I hadn't read a series of Unfortunate Events. I haven't read the rest of the Percy Jackson series. I still haven't read the rest of those. Everything besides the initial series. And yeah, there were so many other series that I had never read. And I spent like that first year of Booktube, I think, doing like a lot of like catch up essentially. Just reading as much as I possibly could on all of those books that like everyone had been talking about that I felt like I was missing out on. But honestly, it's just kind of like, now I kind of look at it as like, sure, I'm not reading as much as I used to be, or like maybe I'm not reading all these popular books that everyone else is talking about, but I have so many books to like look forward to. And like, that makes me like excited. That like gives me motivation to read. When I don't feel like reading. So yeah, you're still a real reader. You're always going to be a reader. Like all those years that I wasn't really reading, I still considered myself a reader. but that period of my life, I just didn't want to read, and that's completely fine. And there's no like limit of books. There's no specific books you have to read to still consider yourself a reader.
Yes, you dictate your own reading journey.
Yeah.
You dictate what type of person you want to be, what types of books you want to read. When I went to, I think it was BA last year, and everyone was talking about new releases and like books they've read and like Six of Crows and all that, and I was just sitting there like, I have no idea what you're talking about because I have so many series that people have read, but I'm still a reader, and you decide what you want to read. Don't force yourself to do anything that you don't want to do. It's entertainment. So, whatever you like to do. If you want to read smut, go ahead. Read that smut. Have a bunch of fun. It's reading. If you want to read children's books, you do you. That's the moral of the story.
We should probably take like one more.
One more? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see.
So if you guys have questions.
Yeah. Let us know. Oh, people are asking how we got into reading. If you want to know about that, watch episode 1, chapter 1. Sorry.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1 of Bookmarked. As we talked about our entire reading journey.
We'll have the whole playlist of all of the past chapters linked down below so you guys can catch up on anything that you may have missed. Next week is one that we're really excited for. While they're putting in questions, do you want to just talk about what we're doing next week?
Sure.
We're just talking about Halloween.
Yeah. So, well,
okay. The Pumpkin Queens come
next
back.
week. Yeah. So we've done a couple of like more serious topics, I guess, for the past couple of weeks. But next week is the day before Halloween. So our chapter is going to be Bookmarked. Yay!
You get it?
So clever.
You get it, like, ghost.
Boo! So we're literally just going to be talking about Halloween. It's going to be really casual. We'll talk about kind of like spooky reads. It's not going to have much of a framework. It's
mostly going to be questions.
Yeah.
So come
Hanging
and
out
join
with
us
friends.
on, what's it called? Devil's Night or something like that? I don't know. The day before Halloween. Come and
What do
join
you
us.
do in Canada?
You don't have that where people go around and smash pumpkins? You can't put your pumpkins out that night because people will smash them. That's not in
What
America.
is Canada?
That's a Canadian
No!
thing. Wow.
We do not do that. Actually,
We
that's
don't
kind
have
of
a
shocking that
devil's
we don't do
night.
that.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, no, we're
now.
such devilish people. Why don't we
I
do
thought that was like a universal thing.
No.
I wish.
Oh.
Honestly, it sounds fun.
It was scary when I was a child. I spent so much time on your jack-o'-lanterns. You can't, people will smash them, so you can't put them out the night before Halloween.
I'm really scared of Canada now. Are you supposed to
I've
be
never
nice?
seen anyone actually do it.
It's the one night that Canada goes wild.
Yeah, we go wild. It's like
the most violent you get is with pumpkins.
yeah, we just smash pumpkins.
But yeah, so we're gonna be doing that on my channel next week.
Yes.
And we are also gonna be dressing up. So
yeah.
Stop it. Other people are saying they're Canadian and no one has done that there.
Hey,
I'm so confused.
It's just a family tradition. Now we know why you are the way that you are.
Maybe your parents just lied to you to keep you from keeping the jack-o'-lanterns outside.
I don't get. It's like I need to Google this. I feel shook.
But next Tuesday is a very stressful day for all of us, so that's why we're just letting loose, having some fun, chatting about things. It's called Cabbage Night here.
Devil's Night is a name associated with October 30th, the night before Halloween.
Is that why they're called Smashing Pumpkins?
Oh, people call it Mischief Night.
Oh, are they Canadian?
I know why. It's because it happens in Detroit.
Oh.
I live near Detroit. That's why.
Are they from Detroit? The Smashing
So it
Pumpkins?
is an American thing then.
So yeah,
of course it is.
I was
We
gonna say,
knew
it doesn't sound
it
Canadian.
had to be.
it's seen a decline recently. Oh my god, I didn't know this was a local
Let's bring
thing.
back Devil's Night.
Hilarious. Wow. The more you know.
Mackenzie Bryn Rapp asks thoughts on number of books read to be counted as a reader.
Any.
Any.
As you want
Yeah.
to
Any.
read.
Yeah.
I know
Yep.
it's kind of turned into a competition on BookTube and Goodreads and all of that to see how many books you can read. I personally, it's a challenge with myself because I always start the year very optimistic. I set my Goodreads reading challenge for like 1,000 books. We're really like 100 books, and then as the year passes, I slowly drop that goal to something more reasonable. But seeing people's wrap-ups, seeing that they've read like 14 books a month or something like that, it is pretty discouraging. And sometimes I do think to myself, like, wow, you shouldn't even like be on BookTube. Like you barely read. But then I sit back, I realize that like one, like I'm struggling with like things. So like I'm busy with other things like mentally and like in life. And the fact that I just haven't had time to read or like I haven't felt like reading, it's all personal. So I still call myself a reader, and it is discouraging at sometimes, and it
can be.
The thing I will say is, look at it this way. I have a video called I think I read 18 books in 1 month or something like that.
That's
and I did
what
that.
I was talking about.
I do that sometimes. But also, this month, I think I've read maybe 1 book.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't even know if I read 1
and
book.
A lot of
that might have been
fiction.
September. Yeah.
You
so like
just make a Goodreads thing for that.
No, but think of it that way. Like it's so subjective, and it so depends on like, for me, like my mood, my mental state, where I'm at in life, like what's going on in my life. And like again, for me, my like Goodreads challenge, like you, Zoe, it's like a personal thing. Like I never like compare my reading to like other people's, like how many books
I
I've
started
read.
at the same goal as everybody else. So I do compare myself at first. And then I'm like, wow, let's get realistic here.
But like, don't feel like discouraged by that. Like I can understand that feeling too, but like, don't feel discouraged by it, because like literally someone who once read 18 books in 1 month also like doesn't feel like reading anything at all. And if you consistently read like 1 book a month, you're probably still doing better than I am, because like sometimes I'll read a million things, sometimes I'll literally read nothing. Like it's not a competition. And if you start to like rewire your thinking around that, it becomes so much more enjoyable to just read at whatever pace you have for yourself, and not like worry and stress so much about like, am I reading enough to be considered a reader?
Yeah, there's a couple of months where I've read 20 books, and I don't think
I've ever done this.
I don't know when that's happened, but more recently, like in September, I read 1 book, and I think that's been something this year since I've been writing so much. I've literally cut my reading in half, and that's been something that has been a struggle for me to deal with. Like I set my Goodreads goal for the first time. I've always achieved my Goodreads goal of reading 100 books. This year I set it for reading 12 books. So 1 a month. I achieved that very quickly, but it still is like tracking. I'm now like 400% done my goal, but I've still only read like 50 books, and only it's just a personal
I read
thing.
Like 20 something.
It's like, it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
I bet you 90% of them are audiobooks though, but that still counts. We talked about that.
As you paid attention.
Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely a very personal thing. As many books as you want to read. If you think you're a reader, congratulations, you are a reader. That's the only criteria. Literally, that's it. You don't have to read a certain number of books. You don't have to buy a certain number of books. You don't need to own them. Like, you're a reader if you think that you're a reader. If you are consuming words, you're a reader.
Rant over. Huzzah. Oh, we have to talk about our Booktuber of the week.
Yay.
Our Booktuber of the week is Jessie from Bowties and Books. They have been doing amazing Halloween reader-inspired skits, and I have watched a bunch of them. So inventive, and I have a lot of fun watching their videos. So we will leave the link down below after the live show, and also we'll tweet out their link. So definitely check out Jessie. A lot of fun. And yeah.
We'll also have the link for the Bookmark Twitter if you wanted to keep up with what we're doing. And like, we ask for questions ahead of time there. So if 1 week you can't attend live, then you can definitely ask your questions ahead of time. And what else was I going to say? We also will tweet out like where the show is going to be, since we skirt around to different channels. Yeah, I didn't know the word.
Devil's Night.
Stop it. We will have the link for the playlist for all the bookmarked episodes down below, or chapters, or whatever. I'm losing my mind over here. And yeah, so next week we're having Bookmarked, October 30th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Hannah's channel, A Clockwork Reader. So.
On Devil's Night, we're gonna be smashing some pumpkins.
Stop it!
Well, honestly, I think I'm gonna get a pumpkin. Let's be honest.
And then smash it.
Yeah,
just for me.
That's how we're gonna start the start the
so rude.
show.
Amazing.
We could try to like sit on the pumpkin. I'm saying like we're gonna be together.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alone in my
fly.
We're all flying to Florida. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
We're all
See
gonna
you
try to smash up.
Oh dear. All right. Well, we hope that you guys enjoyed chapter 4
I don't know what happened.
of Bookmarked. We had a lot of fun discussing what real readers are with you and real readers
are not.
Yes. They're just everyone. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for asking some questions, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.